Okay, so what if I told you your credit card interest rate was suddenly capped at just 10%? Sounds pretty good, right? Well, that's the very question at the center of this huge clash between the White House and Wall Street. We're talking about a president's request, a really dire warning from a top CEO, and a political dare that could affect millions of us. Let's dive in. Right at the center of this whole firestorm is this one pretty provocative statement from JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. He was speaking to the global elite over in Davos, and he basically dared the government to test out its own policy, but in a very specific and, very pointed way. So you gotta ask, right? Why those two states? Why Vermont and Massachusetts? What was Diamond really trying to do with a suggestion like that? To get to the bottom of it, we actually have to rewind a little bit and look at what started this whole fight in the first place. So the spark that really lit this whole fire came straight from then President Donald Trump. He floated this idea that, on the surface, was designed to give American consumers a bit of a break. And the proposal was super simple, but also a really big deal. The president asked banks to voluntarily cap their credit card interest rates at 10% for a whole year. Now, this wasn't some small request. He was asking some of the world's biggest lenders to just leave billions of dollars in potential revenue on the table. The key word here, and you really have to focus on it, is voluntary. This wasn't a law, it wasn't a mandate, it was just a request. And, well, maybe not so surprisingly, a lot of the big credit card companies didn't exactly jump at the chance to make changes. And that's what really set up this huge confrontation. The reaction from the banking industry? It was fast and it was strong. And leading the charge was Jamie Dimon, who, let's just say, did not mince words. And economic disaster. Those were his exact words. I mean, that is a stark, powerful warning. But what kind of disaster was he actually talking about here? So Dimon's argument goes way beyond just, protecting bank profits. He's painting this picture of a massive domino effect. First, he says lenders would pull way back, maybe even cutting off credit for a staggering 80% of Americans. But the pain wouldn't stop there. He predicts it would ripple out to retailers, travel companies, and even public services like schools that rely on people using credit cards. But this wasn't just an economic debate. Not even close. And that brings us right back to Dimon's very specific, very clever choice of states. This was a calculated political move, for sure. He singled out Vermont and Massachusetts. And believe me, that was no accident at all. Okay, so here's the political chess match that was going on. Vermont is, of course, home to Senator Bernie Sanders, and Massachusetts, that's Senator Elizabeth Warren's state. Both of them have been championing a bill to cap rates at 10%. So Dimon's challenge was a direct shot at them. He was essentially saying, you think this is such a great idea? Fine, let's try it on your home turf and see how your own voters feel about it. And that really gets us to the core of this whole thing. On one side, you have people arguing that a cap is all about protecting consumers from sky-high interest rates, from predatory lending. But on the other side, you have the banking industry saying, no, this is going to backfire. They argue it'll just cut off access to credit for millions of people, especially those who need it the most. Which leaves us, well, pretty much where we are today, in a political and economic stalemate, with both sides completely dug in. All right, so here's the quick rundown of where things stand. The banks are holding firm. They are not going for the voluntary request. JPMorgan is actually putting together its official argument to send to the administration. And pretty much everyone agrees that without a brand new law from Congress, a mandatory cap is just not going to happen. So yeah, it's a classic DC standoff. This entire showdown, from a president's idea all the way to a top banker's dare, it really boils down to one big question for all of us. When it comes to your own finances, where do you draw the line between protection and control? It's definitely something worth thinking about.